The relevance to branding for corporates, I would like to take you through. These are the global brands according to Interbrand 2018. Some global brands are here. The significance of these brands are, I would say, if you look at the power of brands, the brand Apple, which is larger than the 8th populous country in the world. Any guesses what is the 8th populous country in the world? Huh? 8th populous country in the world is Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the 8th populous country in the world. And Apple brand is larger than the 8th GDP of 8th populous country in the world. And Apple brand is larger than 150 economies in the world. So that says it all, how powerful the brand is, the relevance for brands for corporate deliberations. The topic tonight is status consumption and role relaxed consumption. And when this was shared in social media, and some people asked, what the hell is this? We haven't heard. Some of the marketers said, look, what is happening? So this is, what is status consumption and role relaxed consumption? I would like to take you through very famous, I'm not going to discuss about theory here. My objective, my task, my endeavor is to bridge theory and practice together. Because this is a university from one hand, from the other hand, this is a place where corporate executives being trained. As well as, to me, there's nothing called theory and practice. All theories made out of practice. So 1943, the Maslow's hierarchy. I'm not going to deal with this because I'm sure a lot of you in the audience, some way or the other, would have seen this or read this or done with it someday or the other. But it's about the hierarchy of needs, how needs being, shall I say, migrated from one level to the other. And this is the latest addition, Some people, the basic need has become what? It's Wi-Fi, world is well connected. So I'm sure Maslow's hierarchy has to be reworded in this basis. And I would even extend further, right? Because you need another basic, if you don't have battery life, there's no Wi-Fi. And in Sri Lankan context, I would even add another one, right? Especially in the current context, because there's no electricity, right? Because there are power cuts. So that there's another layer coming in electricity in Sri Lankan context. So Maslow's hierarchy is not engraved on stone, but it is evolving, right? So moving on. See, if you look at this, if you examine this very critically, you have here the consumer, how consumer behaves or migrate himself during his life. And I like the adaptation or the new development or new deliberation of Maslow's hierarchy is consumer as a user primarily, and then he becomes an experiencer. And from member onwards, if you look at member, I want to be a member in a certain group, right? I want to connote myself confined to a group, right? That's a member. And here, consumer as a communicator. So consumer, not only user, consumer most of the time behaves as a communicator. And finally, he becomes an actualizer. Right, so we'll deal with this, some situations in corporate. And I would like to draw your attention in particular to here. In this level, if you look at functional and experiential level as a consumer, and I call it the individual has two self, if you ask me. And this is the individual self. You as an individual, a consumer as an individual. And the next layer is consumer as a social self. Consumer, I reiterate, consumer as an individual self and consumer as a social self, right? Moving on, here if you look at this from here to here, as a member, communicator and an actualizer, consumer look at products. Consumer look at products. What is the value of me? When I use it, right? When I use it, okay, I'll start from bottom. Here is value for me. Value for me. Meaning, what is it? Value for me. It's more rational, more utilitarian, more functional, right? And what is value of me is what is it I'm going to communicate to my membership groups, for the society, what is it I'm going to communicate as a user of that particular product. Do you understand the logic? Right? So value for me and value of me, right? So this is where the distinction comes in for the discussion tonight, right? And so status consumption, way back in this theory was born, and this Kilschmier is somebody who has done a lot of work on this status consumption. And status consumption, he says, in this status consumption from this derives from this value of me, right? Value of me, it derives the status-seeking consumer, status-seeking consumer. And that consumer is going to look at, right? He's tend to conform himself to a group norm. If I use this product, I'll be confined, or I'll be communicated myself. Myself will be communicated as I am so and so. There's a representational value, right? And this is all to do with value of me is mostly to do with the materialism of individuals. Materialism is higher the materialism, greater the status consumption that is going to happen, right? Also, the status-seeking consumer or the status consumption is to do with they are very susceptible to the environment and the others and the group and the society. So he is not detaching himself. He is engraved in the society. Whatever he does, he refers to his peers. He refers to the society. He gets the approval from the society for his consumption. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So he is not in isolation. Right? He is very much part and parcel of the society. Right? And also he can be an opinion leader, but he is very much susceptible to interpersonal influence. Right? So moving on. On the other hand, role-relaxed consumer is, he's not interested about what is happening in the environment, his peers, and his group. He's not a guy who is looking at cheap stuff. He's a guy who is looking at things rationally, right? And he does not consume for the sake of status seeking, right? He does not consume. So therefore, this role-relaxed consumer do not conform to group norms. He's not referring to anything. He's not seeking opinion from anybody for his decision making. And he is not susceptible to what is happening in the environment. And he do not pay attention to social comparison. So he consumes, but he doesn't want to compare with the rest. A very rational consumer, he does not compare, right? And he is neither an opinion leader nor an opinion seeker. So he's by himself. And if you look at, therefore, the branding, the brand architecture as a brand strategy and a brand architecture, so we got to examine these two, which way that we should be delivering our brand deliberations, deploying our strategies on branding, right? So branding, if you look at, you can see brand architecture can be by and large isolated into two categories for management. One is the communication strategy, how you communicate about the brand. The other one is the brand value, inbuilt brand. Right? I repeat. So most of us can see the communication strategy is more visible to us, but there.
To me, marketing is about value. This is a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. And we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. No company. And so we have to be really clear on what we want them to know about us. Now, Apple, fortunately, is one of the half a dozen best brands in the world. Right up.
Okay, lights please. Marketing is about values. So I'll park this value discussion for a while, right? I park this for a while. I'll come back to marketing is about values in a while, right? Okay, now this is a critical theory and practice coming together, right? Coming together. This is a formula which can be used to create brands. I will show you some of the brands created using this formula, right? And this I call, now don't Google and see R squared EC, you don't find it. Okay, right? So I call it R squared EC. R squared meaning R 2 times, R squared EC, right? This model, if you look at, the R squared EC model is to create a concept called CFOR. The CFOR is the frame of reference, the competitive frame of reference. What is the frame of reference you create for role relaxed consumption and status consumption? Okay. Very technical area in marketing, very technical area in branding. So let's deliberate further, right? If you look at R squared EC model, this can be used to create, to disrupt any brand in any industry. Either to create, I reiterate, either to create or even to disrupt any brand in your industry, right? Now, R square, double R means what to raise, what to reduce, what to eliminate, and what to create. Okay? Now, what are those? So, what to raise, what to create, what to eliminate, and what to reduce, right? You have a point. Make it in. Right, okay. So I move into role relaxed consumption now. Role relaxed, remember, it's not status seeking, but it's role relaxed consumption. So I move into that space now. Role relaxed consumption, how to create this brand architecture in a role relaxed consumed brand is using R squared EC concept. Moving on, I would like to take an example of Casella wine or yellowtail wine. Why I'm taking this wine example is today being a Friday, not a bad example to take, right? Sorry, Thursday. I always get the last day tomorrow. I'm a little nervous about these days because to conclude the financial year, right? So I think I'm getting my dates confused. Okay, anyway, we're hitting the weekend though, right? So role relaxed consumption, I'm going to bridge theory and practice together. I'm going to take a wine in Australian wine market. This is Casella wine. How Casella wine took market leadership in Australia, right? Okay, so they looked at, now Steve Jobs said marketing is about values. Now these are the values of wine market. These are the values of wine market. When you're looking at wine, so they are going to look at what is the price of wine is a value, right? How it is being associated on imagery, on psychological imagery in consumer's mind, in seeing advertising is a value, and above the line advertising again to do with advertising, aging quality, at least one thing in the world, right? older the greater, right? That's wine, okay, right? So they're looking at wine age, and they're also looking at vineyard prestige, which vineyard this is coming from, right? And also they're looking at the wine complexity is to do with that sophistication, how the wine culture, right? Wine culture, and then wine range. So what kind of wine range, what kind of range that I have. So these are the values consumer would look at in purchasing a value. That's what Steve Jobs, the best CEO in the world, said. Marketing is about values. That's a connection, right? Okay. So this Casella wine came to Australian wine market, right, with a vision of being the market leader. So what did they do? They simply applied the R squared EC model, right? R squared EC model. What is the model? R squared. What did they reduce? Or let's start from what did they eliminate, right? They have eliminated the distinctive communication in wine. What do you mean by distinctive communication in wine? Now, wine culture in Australia at that time, I would suggest you to look at, this one, right? And this was the premium brand. The dotted line is the premium brands in Australia. This is the value they have provided. Here, this value is in a higher proportion. So value proposition is very high of all these values by the premium wines in Australia. And this is the value proposition of half semi-dotted line is the budget wines in Australia at that time. So these guys came into the Australian wine market, they engaged the consumer, they look at, hey, what is my proposition? Is it a status consumption proposition or is it a roll relax proposition? Right? I'll explain it further. Right? I reiterate. Is it a status consumption proposition or is it a roll relax proposition? Right? So they thought, looking at consumer engagement, they thought there is an opportunity for a roll relax consumption. I'll tell you why. Right? The roll relax is what? The status consumption is you consumed. This is consumer as a communicator. Consumer as a communicator. Consumer as an actualizer is status consumption. Right? The role relax consumption is consumer in his own role. He's not referring to the society. Right? And actually status consumption is antithesis of Buddhism. Right? Okay, I'm going to bring Buddhism only because I can talk about Buddhism since I am Buddhist. Therefore, I can't refer to any other religion. Right? What is Buddhism? Buddhism is simply about emptiness. Emptiness. Let go. Cutting the ego. There's no ego in Buddhism. Right? The real Buddhism I'm referring to, right? There's no ego in it. Buddhism is achieving emptiness. Buddhism is achieving emptiness. So therefore, there can't be there can't be status consumption in Buddhism, in Buddhist, technically speaking, right? Why I say branding in status consumption is antithesis of Buddhism is branding is all about creating that ego, moving from member to communicator to actualizer. And it's complete antithesis, right? So moving here, so they looked at that and they found we have an opportunity to create a frame of reference to create as a role relaxed consumer, because at that time they were talking about budget wines and premium wines. They were talking about what? They were talking about the distinctive wine culture. Australian wine culture was distinctive. All their advertisements, their settings, everything they were talking about, the culture they were talking about, wine is very aristocratic culture. Wine is for celebration. Wine is for not day-to-day drinking. That's a status consumption. Wine is for celebration, occasion, that kind of thing, right, in Australian wine market. And therefore, they took best wines in best vineyards in the world, right, with vineyard legacy, because they looked at whether Queen Elizabeth has visited to these vineyards, whether she drank wine there, all that, what kind of prestige. But poor consumer is unaware about all this, right? Right? Who will know? If you want to know vineyard prestige, there are over 2,500 vineyards in the world, right? Over 30 countries, big time producing wine in the world. How on earth that you know? And over 3,000 species of grapes on this earth. Now, how on earth that you are going to say which grapes, which vineyard, which prestige, right? And wine aging. How do you find wine aging? Do you have a tester to wine aging, right? Difficult. So these guys looked at, hey, these guys are on a what? These guys in the market is on a status consumption. So therefore, they are looking at the frequency of, right, celebrating wine as a celebrating drink. What did they do? They changed the brand architect. They changed the brand architect to be a roll relax wine. What did they do? They applied that R square DC model. What did they do? They eliminated certain things. What are the things they eliminated? Right? No distinctive communication. Not for very aristocratic people who are in jackets, who are in big setting on drinking wines. They never associated with that, right? And what did they do? They reduced above the line. They all went on market activations. Next, they eliminated aging quality of wine so that you need not to carry inventory. Because then you have to carry huge inventory, right? If you are going to give aging quality of wine. And that's costly. But consumer is not looking at it. Consumer is not interested about it. If consumer is not interested, if they do not know how to find it, why should you invest on that? Right? So they eliminated it completely. So they eliminated, therefore, no inventory cost. The moment you do that, imagine the saving that you are getting. Imagine your brand architect, by changing into one element in roll relax consumption from status consumption, you reduce huge cost base, right? Next, what you do, this is what they have eliminated. Remember R square DC, that's a E, right? What did they reduce? They reduced vineyard legacy and prestige. Where consumer is not going to look at whether Queen Elizabeth, Margaret Thatcher, or whoever visited that place, but he is not interested. So that they reduce it from here to here. Even they reduce more than the budget wines. Wine complexity. Now, wine complexity is the thickering concept, thickering in life. They say some wines are breathing, those complexity they brought in, poor consumer is unaware, right? So that is, they reduce it. They also reduce wine range. They said, hey, we are Yellowtail. Now, if you go to Australian wine, if you go and stand in front of a wine wall in a supermarket, it's from this corner to the other corner in Australia, right? Because how on earth, you have about 50, 60 brands. In each brand, you have about, SKUs, about at least 10, 20 SKUs. And it's so complex to buy. So what did they say? They said, look, right, wine range, I will have white wine and red wine, only 2 SKUs, right? So that inventory came down. Why? Roll relax. So they don't want, 1 liter, 5 liter, 10 liter. It's very for rational consumer. It's roll relax consumer. It's not a status consumer, right? Okay. So what happened then? And then, right, this is what they have reduced. So what did they create? Here, see. What did they create? They created, number one, they created easy drinking. How did they do that? Easy drinking. Now, if you look at status consumption, these wines were consumed in status consumption. You have aluminum foil. You need to remove the aluminum foil, right? And you need to have the wine opener to open it. I had a major issue one day. Some friends called over to have some wine, and nobody at home. I didn't have the wine opener. We ended up drinking something else, right? Because you need to have the wine opener, right? So you have to open the wine, remove the cork, right? And then that setting, that's a culture, that's a setting of wine, right? That's a status consumption, right? So what happened? These guys remove the aluminum foil, which is costly, then you have a saving. They reduced the coke because they had a special line to put that coke in under high pressure, right? Under high pressure. They removed it so that entire line is a saving, right? Entire line is a saving. They had a screw cap. They had a screw cap. Why? It's not status consumption, it's roll relaxed consumption. They had the opportunity to roll relaxed consumption. So they had a screw cap. What do? You unscrew and whack. Why? It's not status consumption, right? It's a roll relaxed consumption, right? That's a space. That's a frame of reference. That's a reference they created. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, right? So what did they create again? They create, right, ease of selection. As I said, ease of selection. 2 SKUs, red and white, right? This is it, right? Ease of selection. Plus, they did not have Vineyard Prestige label because, in status consumption brands, they're saying this is coming from 18th century. Margaret Thatcher has visited 5 times, right? In fact, she had drank whatever they are, right? All that. People are not interested, right? People are not interested. So ease of selection, you need not to look at Wine Age, Prestige, or Vineyard Prestige, nothing. They have one label, and which is an Australian kangaroo, and they say, by the way, we are yellowtail. That's it. Right? So selection became very, in front of a wine ball, selection is so easy. Next one is fun and adventure. Those guys said, right, these two guys said what? Wine is for celebration. Wine is for celebration, and it's a very aristocratic kind of a consumption, status consumption. These guys said, no, this is fun and adventure. Have fun on a daily basis, please, and drink wine on a daily basis. That's it. Right? So this is where the roll relaxed consumption, in certain industries, you have an opportunity for roll relaxed consumption. In certain markets, you have opportunity for status consumption. So this is our roll relaxed consumption, and they became the market leader in Australian wine market. Okay, that's a roll relax. What comes to your mind if I ask fast food? McDonald's? Yes? Huh? Pizza Hut? Huh? Burger King? KFC? Okay. I was expecting those answers. So therefore, I'm going to confine that discussion for 3 brands. Okay? This is Pizza Hut, KFC, McDonald's, right? These 3 brands, because if you get more brands, it is complicated, right? Okay, I'm going to ask from the audience, because I need some interaction. This is not the way that I deliberate things, right? I need some interaction. I am going to ask, what is your last consumption out of these 3 brands? So your answer will be either pizza, KFC, or McDonald's. Is it clear? Just one answer. Unless you consumed all 3 together. I don't think that wouldn't have happened, right? Okay. So what's your last consumption? I'll start from here. McDonald's. Pizza. McDonald's. Pizza. Did you see? I'm not going to continue because of the time, right? What is the last consumption highest brand? Pizza Hut. You're telling me, not I'm telling you, right? Okay. Anybody from John Keel's here? Nobody, right? Good. Right? You might be aware, pizza failed miserably under John Keel's. Pizza failed miserably under John Keel's. Right? You know the reason? And now you saw the last consumption, right? Did you see the last consumption now? The highest consumed brand, it's pizza. You're telling me, I'm not telling you. Okay, highest consumed brand is pizza. If I continue, I'll get the same answer, right? Because other than one person, McDonald's, almost everybody eats pizza in that sample. Okay, right? Why? What happened? So these are like in the wine example, these are the values. Steve Jobs said marketing is about values. These are the values: price, the hygiene, the taste, variety, delivery, parking, the ambient that you create, right? Okay. So these are the kind of values in fast food market, right? And here, I will tell you a story before I get in here. Once, McDonald's owner were asked to deliver a speech in Chicago University of USA. You know that story? So he came in front of people and he was asked to deliver that speech. And he said, "You know what business I'm in?" He said, "I am in 3 businesses." He says, right? Then he went on explaining, "I'm firstly in real estate business." McDonald's own in real estate business. However, secondly, I'm in real estate business, also in real estate business. And he said, "Okay, finally I'll tell you, thirdly also I'm in real estate business." What the hell is happening here? Right? McDonald's owner is saying, "I'm in real estate business." So he went on explaining, what does he mean? He went on explaining. So he said, "Look, for me to run my business, I need a real estate which is situated in a large density of people, right? My real estate must be on the correct side of the road." Now, why they are saying, not in like in Sri Lanka, you can't put left-hand signal and turn to right side on those countries, no? Right? But that's one thing. The other one is McDonald's culture or McDonald's food eating culture. I personally seen in example Russian belt. Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Russian belt, they have a culture of picking McDonald's for breakfast. So if it is for breakfast, you have to be on the correct side where the traffic flows. And there, if you miss one place, you have to travel another 15 kilometers and come back. People will never come back. Right? Now, countries like Eastern Europe, you'll have McDonald's in evening, like in Sri Lanka, there's an evening drive, so you have to be on the right side or the correct side of the evening traffic. So he said, my real estate must have a right ambient. I create ambient. I'm in ambient marketing. I create ambient. I create experience for my consumers, right? So that I have to have that right real estate. And he said, by the way, I sell burgers. He said, if I define myself as a burger seller, that corner shop guy can do better burgers and sell it cheaper than me. Right? So I'm in a business. I define my business as I'm in ambient marketing. I'm in experience. I want people to come to my real estate and experienced. Right? And there is a status consumption. That real estate, right, that association, there's a status consumption attached to it, right? And in Sri Lanka, under John Keels, pizza also went on the status consumption. Pizza went on ambient marketing for that real estate, to have real estate and ambient marketing. So what's the new management did? They came, changed the status consumption to role relaxed consumption. They said, please don't come to my real estate. I will deliver. That's a new frame of reference they created with role relaxed consumption is relax and eat at your place. Right? That's a role relaxed consumption. Right? I will deliver it to you. And this role relaxed consumption, like in the earlier one, the wine example, you saw, right? There's a huge reduction in cost in the value chain by role relaxed consumption, right? Because no big investments on vineyards, the line was cut on coke, fixing, right? No inventory management, you reduce, right? So that your profitability comes great. Now here, what did they do? What did they do was status consumption changed into role relaxed consumption, right? No real estate, I'll deliver to your place, right? That's the strategic change from status consumption. There are examples early example moved from what? status consumption to roll relax in wine example, because you had an opportunity there. Here also status consumption from roll relax. I'll give you other way also. There are examples for other things also. So what happens here? The moment they do that, right? And they have created a new frame of reference. Pizza is delivery guys, right? Delivery guys. That's a frame of reference. By changing these values they created. In fact, what happened was they reduce lot of values and they compete in creating new value. Again, R square DC, what you raise, what you reduce, and what you eliminate. That's a formula. And you can change industries. I'll tell you, right? I have seen it. I have done it. You can change industries on this changing on applying R square DC. You saw that it happened in wine industry, right? Okay. So moving on, that is roll relax consumption. Status consumption. So let's look at status consumption. You know what this is? Any guesses? Now earlier what? Status consumption moving into roll relax consumption. Yes? Now here is roll relax is moving into very status consumption. Right? Any guesses I'm going to talk about? Yeah? The Mukesh Ambani's, all Ambani's, then, do you have any idea? This is about status consumption in cricket, right? It's about IPL, right? Anybody being in IPL, in India at IPL period here? And trust me, it's a huge status to be around IPL and pre-engaged and post-engaged. It's a huge thing. I have personally experienced, right? So here what happens is, look at this brand, right? It's now 12th edition or 10th or 12th edition now. Now 6th, how many years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9th edition, just after 9 years, 9th edition of IPL, their brand value is 220 billion rupees. 220 billion rupees. How much do you think the John Keels is? Value of John Keels? Any idea value of John Keels? No? Value of John Keels is 220 billion rupees. How many years, John Keels? How many years? Maybe over a century, right? Okay. But look at in sixth year, they created a brand which is, right, which is a size of Sri Lankan's biggest conglomerate. They created in 6 years, in 6th edition. I'm sure by this time they would have surpassed, right? So what's the status consumption? This Lalit Mode, he was a founder in this. What did he envision? He envisioned, can I develop a model for Indian cricket, bringing status to it, right? A concept which is self-sufficient to achieve 2 goals. One is, it's fueling the Indian cricket. That's one goal. The second one is, right, can we also produce world best cricketers at early 20s? So that was a vision, right? So what was the status consumption, right? So this is a status consumption. They bring in celebrities to own franchises. Now Preeti Zinta's to all that. Now Preeti Zinta is 1 billion richer now after IPL. She's 1 billion richer after IPL, right? So they brought in a lot of celebrities, a lot of rich people. The Ambanis are now 12th in the world, 20th in the world rich list, right? So they brought in these guys to say, hey, this is status consumption. And they had a version which is a 3-hour, one sitting version, right? What did they, if you look at this, right, what did they reduce? They reduced number of overs to make it one sitting, because it is first 10 overs and last 10 overs only people anyway anyway get runs. So take that 30 overs out, right? So you use that 20 overs, first 20 overs and last 20 overs, right? Okay, so like that, they reduce the time because India, to buy one day media in India is humongous, right? I'll give you a perspective. One ad in Sri Lanka for 30 seconds is going to be around 120,000, let's say prime media. And India prime media in national media is going to cost you about $5 million, right? So they have to reduce the version. They reduce it to a TV-friendly version because that is where the money is. That is where the money is, right? So they reduce it. What did they create? They create an ambient. It's like gladiators in Rome coming and performing. They get the best in the world to perform. They create that carnival attitude, carnival atmosphere. And trust me, pre-engagement sessions, I have been to one of those, you can't compare some events in I haven't seen in that it's happening in Sri Lanka. And some tickets and the cost per entry is going to be about Sri Lankan rupees 150,000 and that kind of, right? Because they want to have that status consumption. And they want to attract, and they call this as cricketainment. It's not cricket, it's cricketainment. That means entertainment. That is why you'll have players talking to media while they are fielding, and you get cheerleaders coming in, and that's a status consumption, right? And there's a huge drop in this area for other forms of entertainment in India, and they have achieved that, right? So by doing it, what happens, right? So because of that status consumption, people come and invest on franchises, right? So this is how this is not relevant to the business model of them. So what do? Media sponsorship is the highest. This media sponsorship is about, I think last time it was about 350 billion Sri Lankan rupees. 350 billion Sri Lankan rupees. That's the highest. So what do? They take, Indian Cricket Board take 40% and 60% given to pool among the franchises. The next is corporate sponsorship like this. This is the corporate sponsorship. This is also about over 100 billion Sri Lankan rupees. Again, 60-40 split. Like title sponsorship, like example, Super King, like, they're having Aircel, all that, each team being sponsored. So that is also splitted in the same equation. So these are the cash flows for IPL. So once you have a positive cash flow, what do? The Lalit Modi's model is, you go to Mumbai Stock Exchange and you list the company, public will come and buy the shares, you recoup your investment and move out. How do you like it? How do you like it? So that's a business model. Bringing in, say, status consumption. Bringing in status consumption, right? Okay, so you saw migration from role relax consumption to status consumption to role relax, as well as from role relax to status consumption, right? So this is one other example I like to deliberate is, see, about good 10 years ago, anybody from Elephant House here? About good 10 years ago, the Elephant House had a major problem. The problems Elephant House had was their profile was coming down. Their market share came down, the profitability came down, the volume came down, you name it, they had it, right, in terms of their profile. So they looked at what is happening, right? What is happening in the marketplace, right? And they got engaged with the consumer, otherwise you can't find what is happening on research and various things. And they looked at Elephant House and they found from the market, they learned from the market, Elephant House, funeral house. What do you mean by that? Elephant House at that time were running a campaign on, if you look at the counterparts, Coke, Sprite, Pepsi, and Elephant House and so forth. Elephant House bottle was slightly larger and it is 100 ml more. They ran huge campaigns on 100 ml more, right? And also there's no emotional attachment to the brand. And they were on very utilitarian value. So what happened was consumers were using it to serve in funeral houses. That's the association. That's the frame of reference. That's the association. Higher amount so that you serve more. But otherwise, there's no status consumption, no? Yeah, right? So what did they do? They looked at what is happening. Elephant House is funeral house. They have identified it. They took one brand at a time. They changed them to a status consumption. How did they change it to a status consumption? First brand, they took Elephant House. What is the equation? R square DC. Remember, R square DC. What to raise, what to reduce, what to create, what to eliminate. That's a concept, right? So I'll be very brief because I can't get into that because time is also catching up, right? So what is here is earlier frame of reference, Elephant House for elderly people or convalescing people. Somebody is recovering from sick people for EGB, for ginger beer. What do they do? They change the frame of reference by changing the values as we discussed, right? They change it for dining. Now Elephant House is ginger beer is, they did not do anything to the formula, right? They change the frame of reference of the consumer by changing, increasing, reducing values and creating new values. R square DC. Okay. So what did they do? They changed the frame of R. When you do R square EC model, when you apply, the frame changes. Remember, right? Dining dining out versus dining in, right? So that's a frame of reference. So they change the frame of reference. The ultimate of R square DC is changing the frame of reference, right? I had to rush because of the interest of the time, right? So what is happening is they change the frame from stomachache or convalescing or that frame to dining and young. Now, honestly, I can't remember the last day I had a stomachache. I can't remember. But I dine 3 times a day. Do you understand what I'm saying? I cannot remember the last day I had a stomachache. I can't remember. But I dine 3 times a day. So the moment you create the frame of reference for dining, brand is exposed to huge amount of opportunity. Is that right? The earlier, they used ginger for stomachache, but now they are saying ginger for digestion. Right? They change the frame of reference. They change the frame of reference from elder to young. So the new values they created was what? New values they created, R square DC. They reduce the functional value, which is 100 ml more, right? That's a reduction. And what did they create? They created the new frame, new value, right? Ginger is for digestion. Ginger is for young, so that old people also started drinking, right? Okay, and they created EGB Natu Kamepa. So that's a new frame they have created because of R square DC application, right? And their sales started going through the roof from this. And they took one by one and said, Yavane, Popina, Chamatkare for cream soda, right? All that, they changed the frame of reference and the values, right? So that's using status consumption, bringing status consumption. Okay, so status consumption, that is the brand architecture for status consumption. You can use it for brand architecture. That's an inbuilt value. That's what we were talking about. The brand architecture, how you change the values of the brand. This also can be used, but not in isolation, but can be used also for communication strategy. Also for communication. Are you going to communicate role relax, or are you going to communicate status consumption? That also can be done. So I'll take you through one or two, I'll wind it off by another 5 minutes by taking few. So first is status consumption. Now we at TVS, we had an issue of, we had done a lot of research about three-wheeler consumers. And the research we found, there's a status issue. And research, they said, we found in the research, people are saying, sir, me අපිට කියන්නේ three-wheeler කාරෝ කියලානේ sir අපිව ගණන් ගන්න සමාජයේ. Anybody can, all can understand Sinhalese, right? Okay. අපිව සමාජයේ ගණන් ගන්න අපිට කියන්නේ three-wheel කාරෝ කියලා. Three-wheel කාරයා, that's the biggest problem they had. You call it like three-wheeler කාරන්නේ මිනිහා. That's the biggest issue that they had, right? So there's a status problem. Nobody liked to, right, in this pyramid, even at the bottom level, nobody liked to, right, they need their self-esteem and respect. Though they do not consume status consumption, though they are in role relaxed consumption, role relaxed does not mean, right, I will accept anything. It's a rational behavior only, right? So they said, we have a problem, right? And especially at that time, our counter brand Bajaj was big in number. We launched it many years after. So that three-wheeler car is largely associated with Bajaj, right? So we thought, let's give these guys a different look. I'm looking at not brand architecture as status consumption, but status consumption as communication now. Brand architecture I finished, I gave you some example, right? So in communication, then we thought, okay, how do we do that? So we used, then first this campaign used to bring them some status in the society and to say, these guys are good guys, right? Make a sound thing on it.
තාමත් ත්‍රිවිල් එකේ වැඩද?
අපි මහත්තයව දන්නවද?
පුතා. යමු. මහත්තයා. මං දැනගෙන හිටියා කවදාරි මාව බලන්න එවි කියලා. කරුණේ මාව TVS කිංගකට මාරුණා. ඔව් මහත්තයා. TVS King එකත් මහත්තයා වගේම විශ්වාසයි. විශ්වාසය දෙනෝ TVS King. දැන් කාර් එකක් වගේ. කුංචි කාලේ මතක් වෙන්නත් එක්ක යමුද රවුම? යම්. TVS King එකට ඕගොල්ලෝත් මාරුණානේ.
So that is, see, imagine an icon of Sangakkara stature coming and saying Karune Mama. So that's a respect, right? Status consumption. That's a respect we wanted to give it to the community. And this campaign was highly accepted by the community because this created a huge thing. They're saying Mama. So Karune Mama, you're part of the society. Also, if you look at role relax communication, it's very direct. We use the concept very direct, on your face, right? Because profile is such that the role relax is, they are very utilitarian. They want, what is it for me, right?
TVS Metro, petrol kilometer ආසුහතක දුරක්. TVS Metro, ආසියාවේ විශ්වය mileage leader, warranty leader.
See, there it is very utilitarian, right? Because there's a very huge utilitarian value. That is the only brand available which gives 87 kilometers per liter. So that we use the very roll relaxed. There's no, you're not going to compare anybody. It's a pure utilitarian value. Also recently, with this I'll conclude the discussion. Recently also we look at, right. So again we have seen in Sri Lanka, there's a scooterization happening in Sri Lanka. People are moving from bikes to scooters. So, and also there's a huge, if you look at, we got involved with research also, the profile of two-wheeler users in Sri Lanka is changing. and the consumer is changing and evolving. I saw you in Maslow's hierarchy, the Wi-Fi's and the batteries and all that is coming, right? So consumer is evolving. So we also brought in another two-wheeler, and which is a scooter, and that we look at status consumption. We are talking about, right, do you use this and be a communicator of this product, right, or be an actualizer of this category? So that is this campaign. So, okay.
Hello, Dylan. Smart Damasakana ready. Boss calling. 5 minutes selling ennalu. Sport mode switch karamu. Right එක tough. Chunky tires, disc brake ඕනෙමයි. SMS from Papa. Smart fun එකට වෙලාව හරි. Navigation එකෙන් තන හොයාගමු. TVS N-Torq 125, Sri Lanka's first sporty smart scooter. 31st ever features. TVS N-Torq stun everyone.
So that's about using status consumption, because there's a huge space, there's a huge frame to use status consumption. So therefore, in conclusion, if you look at status consumption and role relaxed consumption can be used in developing the brand architect itself. Brand architect, you can structure the brand architect using status consumption and role relaxed consumption, and also that can be used for communication, doing communication. So that, with that, I conclude the status consumption and role relaxed consumption in developing brands. Thank you.